Discipline is easy. Opening. It's strange, isn't it? The very things we know will make us healthier, happier, and more successful are often the things we put off the most. We know exercise will make us stronger, yet the couch feels more inviting. We know going to bed early will clear our minds for tomorrow, yet the glowing screen keeps us hooked for another hour. And when we fail to follow through, we beat ourselves up with the same thought. I just don't have enough discipline. But maybe discipline isn't as hard as you think. We tend to imagine it as this towering wall that only people with unshakable willpower can climb. In reality, discipline isn't about brute force or superhuman strength to resist temptation. Discipline is an art of design, shaping your life in such a way that the right choice becomes the easy choice. Think of it like sailing. Instead of straining against the wind, you adjust your sails so that the wind carries you forward. That's what true discipline feels like. It's not a battle to be fought every single day. It's a system you build. A system where your identity, your energy, your environment, and even the kindness you show yourself when you stumble all work together to keep you moving in the right direction. In this video, I'm going to share with you 9 principles that make discipline effortless. Principles I've seen work across all ages. Whether you're a teenager struggling to stay focused in school or an adult searching for balance in the chaos of daily life. Discipline, at its core, is not about punishment or sacrifice. It's about aligning your actions with who you truly want to be. And to begin, the very first principle, the foundation of all the others, is this: don't just set goals, build an identity. Part 1. Create identity, not just goals. When most people talk about discipline, they start with goals. I want to lose 10 pounds. I want to read 20 books this year. I want to wake up at 5 a.m. every day. Goals sound inspiring, but here's the problem. Goals alone rarely change behavior for long. Because every goal has an expiration date. You hit the target, and then what? You stop, or you miss it, and you feel like a failure. Either way, the motivation fades. There's a deeper way to build discipline, and it doesn't begin with what you want to achieve, but with who you believe you are. This is the difference between outcome-based goals and identity-based habits. An outcome says, I want to run a marathon. Identity says, I am a runner. That small shift in language is powerful, because once something becomes part of your identity, your actions naturally follow. Think about it. If you tell yourself, I'm trying to quit smoking, you're still identifying as a smoker. You're just a smoker who's trying to quit. But if you say, I don't smoke, your identity has already shifted. You're not resisting temptation every time. You're simply living in alignment with who you are. I've seen this over and over with my students and clients. A high schooler once told me, I want to get better grades. That was her goal. But after a few weeks, the goal wasn't enough to keep her consistent. So I asked her, what kind of person do you want to be? She thought for a moment and said, I want to be someone who always shows up prepared. We worked on that identity. She wasn't just chasing grades anymore. She was living as a prepared student. Her discipline skyrocketed. Psychology backs this up too. Our brains are wired to act consistently with the story we tell ourselves. When you believe, I am disciplined, I am healthy, I am a learner, your actions try to match that belief. And every small action that aligns with your identity becomes evidence that reinforces it. It's a loop. Identity shapes behavior, and behavior strengthens identity. So, how do you apply this in your own life? Start small. Don't try to change everything at once. Instead, ask, who do I want to become? Maybe it's, I'm a person who takes care of my body. Or, I'm the kind of person who keeps promises to myself. Write that identity down. Say it out loud. And then, prove it to yourself in the smallest possible way. If your new identity is, I am a reader, then read 1 page today. That's it. 1 page is enough to keep the loop alive. The mistake many people make is trying to build identity by making huge, dramatic changes overnight. But identity grows like roots, not fireworks. It's the repetition, not the intensity, that makes it real. You don't become a runner the first time you jog around the block. You become a runner when you jog, again and again, until running feels like something you simply do. Now, let's be clear, building identity doesn't mean ignoring goals completely. Goals can give you direction, but identity gives you permanence. A goal is about crossing a finish line. Identity is about becoming the kind of person who always keeps running, even when there's no finish line in sight. If you take only one thing from this principle, let it be this. Discipline is not about forcing yourself to do something you hate. It's about choosing who you are, and then letting your actions flow naturally from that choice. So tonight, instead of asking, what goal should I set, try asking, who am I becoming? Because once you answer that honestly, the discipline you've been chasing stops feeling like a fight and starts feeling like the most natural expression of yourself. Up next, we'll talk about energy. Because once your identity is clear, the next step is making sure your body and mind actually have the fuel to live it out. Part 2. Energy before discipline. Most people think discipline is all about willpower. They believe that if you're determined enough, you can push through anything. But here's the truth. Willpower is like a small flame, and energy is the fuel. Without fuel, the flame dies quickly. Discipline works the same way. When your body is exhausted, when you're sleep-deprived or running on stress, no amount of mental toughness can keep you consistent. Think back to the last time you didn't sleep well. The next morning, you told yourself you'd eat healthy. But by lunchtime, that pastry on the counter looked irresistible. That wasn't weakness. It was biology. Neuroscience tells us that sleep deprivation reduces activity in the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for decision-making and self-control. In plain terms, when you're tired, your brain literally loses the tools it needs to stay disciplined. Energy, then, is the foundation of discipline. It rests on 3 pillars: sleep, nutrition, and movement. If one collapses, discipline collapses with it. You can force yourself to sit and study, but if you've been surviving on 4 hours of sleep, your focus won't hold. You can promise to eat clean, but if your breakfast is just caffeine and sugar, your body will start craving more sugar by the afternoon. I remember a friend of mine who worked night shifts. He kept saying, "I don't have discipline. I'm too tired." But when we looked closely, it wasn't a discipline problem. It was an energy problem. We adjusted his sleep into 90-minute cycles, added a simple protein-rich snack, and built a short 10-minute workout into his breaks. The result? His energy went up, and almost instantly, his discipline followed. He didn't suddenly find willpower. He just had fuel for the fire again. So how do you build this foundation for yourself? Start small, with rituals of recovery. Drink a glass of water right after waking up. Step outside for a few minutes of sunlight. Breathe deeply, or take a short walk after lunch. These tiny habits send a signal to your body. I am recharging. Next, learn your personal energy rhythm. Everyone has golden hours during the day. For some, it's morning. For others, it's afternoon. Pay attention to when you feel most alert, and schedule your most important work during that time. Discipline doesn't mean being productive at every hour. It means working with your energy instead of against it. And be mindful of hidden enemies. Too much caffeine late in the day wrecks your sleep. Heavy late-night meals keep your body digesting when it should be recovering. Blue light from your phone convinces your brain it's still daytime. Each of these may seem small, but together they quietly erode your energy, and with it, your discipline. One powerful tool is to track your energy. Not in a complicated way. Just rate it from 1 to 10 each morning and evening. After a few weeks, you'll notice patterns. You'll see what habits drain you and what restores you. And once you learn to manage energy, discipline is no longer a daily battle. It becomes a natural outcome. In part 1, we said discipline begins with identity, deciding who you are. But identity needs energy to live. Just like a car, you may know the direction you want to go, but without fuel in the tank, you're not going anywhere. And once your tank is full, the next step is learning how to start small, because no one builds great discipline without first mastering small wins. Part 3. Start small, win big. When most of us think about discipline, we picture big, dramatic goals. Losing 20 pounds in 3 months, waking up at 5 a.m. every day, or reading 50 books in a year. It sounds bold, it sounds inspiring, but here's the problem. For most people, these goals collapse after just a few days. The initial excitement fades, the routine feels heavy, and soon, you're left with guilt and the thought, maybe I just don't have discipline. But the truth is, discipline doesn't begin with grand actions. It begins with small wins. Wins so small that, at first, they might feel almost meaningless. Yet those tiny steps are exactly what lay the foundation for lasting habits. In psychology, there's a concept called the small wins effect. Every time you finish something, no matter how small, your brain releases dopamine, the chemical of satisfaction and motivation. Your brain doesn't care whether you just folded one shirt or finished a marathon. Either way, it rewards you with the same message. I completed something. That's why starting small is not weakness, it's strategy. I once worked with a student who wanted to write a book. She told me, I never have the discipline to sit for hours at the keyboard. So I gave her a strange assignment. Write just one sentence per day. One sentence. She laughed at first. It seemed too easy. But weeks later, one sentence grew into a paragraph, then a page. Months later, she finished her first manuscript. She didn't become a writer by declaring she'd finish a novel. She became a writer by writing one line at a time. And this principle applies everywhere. Want to learn a language? Forget about fluency in a year. Start with one new word each day. After a year, that's 365 words. And more importantly, the identity of being a learner. Want to get fit? Don't begin with 5-mile runs. Start with a 1-minute plank every day. Want to be more productive at work? Try writing 3 sentences of your report in the morning. Even in relationships, sending one thoughtful text a day can transform the closeness you feel. Of course, there's a trap. Dismissing small actions as pointless. Many people quit because they think small equals meaningless. But small is powerful because it compounds. Just like compound interest in finance, tiny habits multiply over time. Saving $1 a day won't change your life tomorrow, but over months and years, it builds into something significant. Habits grow the same way. The philosopher Lao Tzu said it best thousands of years ago. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. In modern psychology, from James Clear's Atomic Habits to B.J. Fogg's Tiny Habits, echoes the same truth. It's not the size of the step, but the consistency of taking it. Here's another way to think about it. Every small win, send yourself a message. When you show up for that 1 minute of exercise or that 1 page of reading, you're not just completing a task. You're proving to yourself, I am someone who keeps promises to myself. That identity is worth more than any goal on paper. Because identity is what endures. So, don't fall into the trap of comparing your small beginnings with someone else's big achievements. What matters is momentum. One small win today makes it easier to win again tomorrow. And before you know it, those tiny victories add up to a completely different version of you. If you take just one lesson from this principle, let it be this. Discipline isn't built on heroic bursts of effort. It's built on the quiet repetition of small actions, day after day. Don't wait until you're ready for something massive. Start now, with the smallest step you can take. Because the small things aren't small at all. They are the seeds of transformation. And from here, the natural question is, how do we make those small wins happen consistently, without overthinking or procrastinating? The answer lies in the next principle, the 2-minute rule. Part 4. The 2-minute rule, English. Sometimes procrastination doesn't come from a task being too hard. It comes from the fact that it hasn't even started. One email left unanswered, one dirty cup on the desk, one paper not filed, one idea not written down. They pile up, and suddenly your mind feels heavy. The truth? Most of these things could be done in under 2 minutes. That's where the 2-minute rule comes in. If something takes less than 2 minutes, do it right away. Simple, yes, but deceptively powerful. This rule works because of action inertia. Once you start, your body and brain naturally want to continue. Completing a small task also clears the mental load of what psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect. our tendency to feel stressed by unfinished tasks. I once knew an office worker who faced hundreds of unread emails every morning. Just seeing them drained his energy before the day even began. Then he applied the 2-minute rule. Any email that required less than 2 minutes to answer, he replied immediately. Within a week, his inbox was cleaner, but more importantly, his mind felt lighter. You can use this rule anywhere. At work, jot down that quick idea, put away the document you just used, answer that short email. At home, wash the dish right after eating, fold the shirt you just took off. For study, read 1 page, scribble down a quick summary. For health, stretch, drink a glass of water. Each action takes less than 2 minutes, but each pulls you out of procrastination and into momentum. A friend of mine wanted to start running, but he always said he had no time. I told him, forget running. Just change into workout clothes and walk for 2 minutes. He did, and something magical happened. 2 minutes of walking turned into 5, then 10. Within months, running became his habit. It all began with 2 minutes. Of course, there are traps. Some people use the 2-minute rule as an excuse to avoid big tasks, endlessly tidying their desk instead of tackling the real project. Others stretch 2 minutes into 20 and lose focus. The key is this: use it to start, not to escape. I like to imagine it as a small stone blocking the beginning of a river. Deal with the little things early, and you prevent chaos downstream. In meditation, too, a single mindful breath can reset a cluttered mind. The 2-minute rule works the same way. Tiny actions that bring clarity and momentum. Try it today, and you'll see. The small stuff no longer clogs your head, and you slip into action more easily. Most importantly, you feel in control. The 2-minute rule isn't just about cleaning up little tasks. It's about training your discipline through the momentum of action. Once you learn to start small, you've already unlocked the door to bigger things. But here's the catch. For these small, quick actions to last, your environment has to support them. Because if your environment is full of distractions, even 2 minutes won't save you. And that's exactly what we'll explore in the next principle. Part 5. Design your environment. There's a truth most people overlook. Our willpower is fragile. You might wake up feeling determined, but the moment you see a bag of chips sitting on the counter, your healthy eating plan wavers. That's why discipline isn't only about willpower, it's about environment. Environment is like a silent partner, quietly pulling you forward or holding you back. If your surroundings are full of temptations, you waste energy fighting them. But if your environment is arranged so that the right choice is the easiest one, discipline becomes almost automatic. Think about the last time you wanted to exercise. If your shoes were buried in the closet and your clothes scattered, starting fell hard. But if your sneakers were waiting by the door and your outfit was laid out on the chair, you just put them on and go. That's the power of environment. Behavioral psychology tells us behavior equals motivation plus ability plus prompt. Motivation rises and falls. Ability has limits. But prompts from the environment are constant. A book placed on your desk is far more likely to be opened than one hidden on a shelf. A phone filled with social media apps pulls you endlessly, while a stripped-down phone helps you focus. I once worked with a student who said, "I want to study, but every time I open my laptop, I end up on Facebook." We tried a small change. She installed a site blocker during study hours and taped a note on her desk that said, "Just 15 minutes." The result? Her studying became smoother almost overnight. She didn't need more willpower, just a smarter environment. This applies everywhere. At work, clear your desk so only the important documents remain. At home, put fruit in plain sight in the fridge and hide the sweets. In relationships, create phone-free zones for deeper conversations. The common mistake is making surface changes, buying organizers, tidying once, but not redesigning the flow. Real change happens when spaces are tied to specific habits. A work corner only for studying, a rest corner only for relaxing. When each space has a clear function, your brain automatically shifts mode when you enter it. I like to think of environment as water currents. Swim against them and you tire quickly. Align yourself with them and you glide forward. Discipline works the same way. With the right environment, you don't need constant struggle. You stay on course naturally. So try this today. Look around the room where you spend the most time. Ask yourself, what here is pulling me away from who I want to be? What can I change so that the right action becomes the easy action? Even a small shift can spark a new habit. Discipline isn't an endless battle with willpower. It's the art of shaping your environment. And when you master that, discipline stops being a burden and becomes a natural outcome of smart design. Next, once your environment supports you, the crucial step is learning to track your progress, because what gets measured gets improved. Part 6. Track. Don't trust memory. One of the most common mistakes people make when building discipline is relying on memory to judge their progress. Our minds are unreliable record keepers. Sometimes we exaggerate what we've done and convince ourselves it's enough, giving us permission to slack off. Other times we forget our own efforts and feel like we've barely made any progress, which kills motivation. Memory is selective, emotional, and often biased. If discipline is built on memory alone, it will always rest on shaky ground. That is why tracking matters. Tracking brings the truth to the surface. It creates a clear mirror that reflects what you actually did, not what you think you did. Every mark you make on a calendar, every line in a notebook, every number you log is a piece of evidence. These are not just data points, but proof that you showed up, that you kept a promise to yourself. I once worked with a student who constantly felt defeated. She told me, "I never study enough. I just don't have the discipline." We tried a simple experiment. She wrote down her study hours each day. After 2 weeks, the numbers told a different story. On average, she was studying 2 to 3 hours daily. That was not nothing. Her memory had tricked her into believing she was failing. Seeing the truth on paper gave her confidence back and reminded her that consistency, not perfection, was what mattered. Tracking doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need a fancy app or a complex spreadsheet. A simple wall calendar, where you mark each day you complete a habit, works wonders. A small notebook where you jot down a few lines before bed can be enough. Even a minimalist habit tracker on your phone will do. The key is consistency. Every day must leave a trace. Each completed day links to the next, forming a chain. And once the chain grows, you won't want to break it. That visible streak of progress is more powerful than any promise whispered in your head. There's a danger here too. Many people make the mistake of tracking too much, turning it into a burden. They record dozens of numbers, log every detail, and eventually burn out. That defeats the purpose. Tracking is not meant to add pressure. It is meant to give clarity. Keep it simple. One mark, one line, one number, enough to keep you grounded in reality. I often remind my clients of a simple truth. What gets measured gets improved. Without numbers, you live in illusion. With tracking, you see exactly where you are, how far you've come, and where you need to go next. Numbers don't lie. They strip away excuses and show you the honest gap between intention and action. Discipline does not live in vague memories. It lives in the concrete evidence you leave behind day after day. A mark on a page, a number in a journal, a streak that grows longer with each new day. These are the quiet witnesses of your discipline. And when you look back, you will see that discipline was never about grand declarations. It was about the trail you left, the steady proof that you kept moving forward. And once you've built this bridge between intention and action, there is another force that can multiply your progress even further: accountability. Walking the path with others can double or even triple your discipline. That is what we will explore next. Part 7. Build accountability. When you try to maintain discipline on your own, some days feel easy, but other days are heavy, filled with excuses and fatigue. And it's usually on those tough days that willpower alone isn't enough. That's why you need an external force to keep you going: accountability. Accountability means letting someone else see your journey. It can be as simple as telling a friend you will exercise 3 times a week and asking them to check in with you next week. That single spoken promise makes you take it more seriously, because now you're not only keeping a commitment to yourself, but also to another person. I once worked with a small group of students. each with a different goal. One wanted to learn a language, another wanted to run, another wanted to write a journal. We created a small chat group where everyone posted a short update each night. Nobody judged anyone for missing a day, but the group itself was a quiet reminder. The result was clear. Their consistency improved dramatically compared to when they worked alone. Psychologists call this positive social pressure. As human beings, we are deeply shaped by the presence of others. When someone is watching, even gently, we are more likely to choose the better action. Accountability transforms discipline from a lonely struggle into a shared journey, supported by the presence of others. The important thing to remember is that accountability is not about surveillance or harsh judgment. It's about companionship. It can come from a close friend, a group with the same goals, or even an online community. You don't need someone more skilled than you, only someone who genuinely cares about your progress. The mistake many people make is choosing the wrong partner. If you pick someone who is indifferent or mocking, you'll feel negative pressure and want to quit. But if you find someone who encourages and respects you, accountability becomes a powerful source of strength. I like to think of accountability as a mirror. When you look into a mirror, you see yourself clearly. You cannot lie. A good accountability partner acts like that mirror. They remind you when you forget, reflect the truth when you drift, and cheer you on when you're on track. If discipline feels like too heavy a battle, find someone to share it with. Tell them what you're doing, what you want to achieve, and ask them to check in now and then. That small step alone can multiply your consistency many times over. Discipline was never meant to be walked alone. It grows stronger when others are beside you, reminding you, supporting you, and celebrating your progress. Accountability does not take away your freedom. It gives you freedom from procrastination and weakness. And once you've gained strength from that companionship, the next step is learning to celebrate progress, because joy is what keeps discipline alive. Part 8. Celebrate progress. In the journey of discipline, many people keep their eyes fixed only on the destination. They believe joy can come only when the big goal is achieved. But this mindset makes the road heavy and exhausting. If you allow yourself to feel proud only at the finish line, then for most of the path, you will feel deprived. And when joy is absent, discipline quickly breaks down. That's why celebrating progress, no matter how small, is so essential. Every time you pause to acknowledge your effort, every time you give yourself even a simple pat on the back, your brain releases dopamine, the chemical of satisfaction. This creates a positive loop. Discipline becomes associated with joy, and you want to repeat it more often. Celebration is not the reward at the end. It is the fuel that keeps you going. I once worked with a young woman who set a goal to run 10 kilometers. In her first week, she managed just one. She felt disappointed, focusing on how far she still had to go. But instead of criticizing, we celebrated that 1 kilometer. Each week, she honored her small progress, step by step. 6 months later, she completed the full 10 kilometers, filled with joy. What sustained her was not just grit, but the little celebrations along the way. Celebration doesn't have to be grand. Sometimes it's as simple as writing down, "Today I did it." It could be playing your favorite song after finishing work, enjoying a quiet coffee, or giving yourself a guilt-free evening off. The reward doesn't need to be big. What matters is the pause to recognize that you are moving forward. The mistake many people make is ignoring these small steps. They think only the final outcome matters. But discipline is not a finish line. It is a chain of days linked together. If you learn to light up each small step, you'll have the energy to keep walking the long road. If you don't, the journey will always feel like not enough. Eastern wisdom often says, the journey itself is the reward. It means you don't have to wait until the end to feel the value. You can embrace it right now, in the small victories. And behavioral science agrees. Habits are reinforced most strongly when tied to positive emotions. So take a moment each day to ask yourself, what step forward did I take today? Smile at that step. Thank yourself for not giving up. When celebration becomes a habit, discipline turns into a joyful journey, not a burden. Discipline is not endless deprivation. It is about acknowledgement, self-reward, and learning to savor every small step along the bigger path. When you celebrate progress, discipline no longer feels like dragging yourself uphill. It becomes a dance, powered by joy. And when you've learned to celebrate, the final lesson is this: kindness. The ability to forgive yourself when you stumble, and to keep moving forward. That is the last principle in this journey. Part 9. Forgive yourself. Don't quit. One of the main reasons people fail to stay disciplined is not because they lack ability, but because they are too harsh on themselves. One missed day quickly turns into self-criticism, judgment, and eventually giving up altogether. A small slip becomes a total collapse simply because forgiveness was missing. Forgiving yourself does not mean being lazy or careless. It means recognizing that you are human, and humans are not perfect. There will be tired days. There will be moments you fall short. That is not failure. What truly matters is not how many times you fall, but whether you show yourself enough kindness to stand up again. I once knew a young man who committed to going to the gym 6 times a week. The first week went well. The second week, he missed 2 days. By the third week, he quit entirely. When I asked why, he said, "I broke the plan, so I failed." That mindset is common. People treat one small scratch on a page as a reason to throw away the whole notebook. But in reality, a scratch is just a scratch. You still have plenty of space to write on. Lasting discipline requires patience and compassion. When you forgive yourself, you send an important message. I am not perfect, but I am still worthy of continuing. That message gives you the strength to go further. Psychologists often talk about the second-day effect. Missing once doesn't destroy a habit, but missing twice in a row drastically increases the risk of quitting. The key, then, is not to never stumble, but to not stumble twice in a row. Forgive yourself and return immediately, instead of spiraling into guilt. Forgiveness also helps preserve a positive relationship with yourself. If every mistake turns into self-abuse, you will eventually hate the journey. But if you can say, "It's okay, I'll try again tomorrow," the path becomes lighter. You are no longer dragging yourself forward with a whip, but walking alongside yourself with compassion. Eastern philosophy says, water wears down stone, not because water is forceful, but because it is patient. Discipline works the same way. You don't need perfection. You need persistence and the willingness to return after every slip. So ask yourself, will you give up because of one missed day, or will you forgive yourself and let tomorrow be a continuation? Every act of forgiveness keeps the door to discipline open. Every act of harshness slams it shut. Discipline is not the journey of perfection. It is the journey of patience, of kindness toward yourself, of standing up after falling down. Forgiveness does not make you weak. It makes you stronger because it allows you to continue instead of stop. When you learn to forgive yourself, discipline no longer feels like chains around your body. It becomes a long road filled with second chances. And that is the deepest truth about discipline. It is not about never falling, but about never quitting. Conclusion: discipline is a journey to freedom. When people hear the word discipline, many picture restriction, rigid control, or a life weighed down by rules. But after walking through these 9 principles, you begin to see the deeper truth. Discipline is not chains. Discipline is the road to freedom. It starts with shaping your identity, not just setting scattered goals. It is fueled by energy, because only a healthy body and clear mind can sustain consistency. It grows through small wins, is reinforced by simple tools like the 2-minute rule, supported by an intelligent environment, and made visible through honest tracking. Discipline gains strength from accountability, is nourished by celebrating progress, and becomes lasting when you practice forgiveness and compassion toward yourself. Discipline is not the pursuit of perfection. It is the journey of ordinary people, full of missteps, who still choose to rise and move forward. It is not a battle against yourself, but a partnership with yourself, designing life so that the right thing becomes the easy thing, encouraging yourself smiling at each small step. When you step back and see the whole picture, you realize discipline is not about sacrificing joy. It is about securing joy that lasts. It is not about harsh force, but about freedom. Freedom from distraction, from procrastination, from regret. And above all, discipline is not a destination. It is a way of living, a current you align with, so that each day takes you closer to the person you want to become. Remember, discipline is not built in one grand moment of resolve. It is built in the thousands of tiny choices you make every day. Each decision, each action, each step combines to shape a life. And when discipline becomes part of who you are, you discover it has not taken anything away from you. It has given you the greatest gift of all, the freedom to live as your truest self.